When I eat of bread, Lord, we give us our humanity at the foot of thine and Jesus. Compare the text. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We speak today about the value of the Mass. Of course, the value of the Mass is infinite, because it has the value of a divine action. And a divine action has an infinite value. The value of a gift is proportionate to the dignity of the giver and the cost of the gift. The Mass, only worthy gift for God, is offered by Christ, the Son of God. It cost him his very life. The value of the gift is God himself. The Mass is God offering God to God. Infinite value of the minister. God himself is a priest, Jesus, offering God the victim, Jesus, to God the Father. There is no better prayer, no greater one than the Mass. This is to hear or to say Mass is the greater work we can do, better than any other work. For you, there is no better prayer, no best use of your time than to come to daily Mass. No novena, no rosary, no devotions has a greater value than the daily Mass. Even if you organize 3 days of prayer non-stop and 3 days of fasting, it has a better value than the Holy Mass. Because when you do something, you are the one doing something. In the Mass, it is God himself doing something for us. And that is very different. By other good work, we offer to God gifts that are human. My efforts, my rosaries, my penance. In the Mass, we offer him gifts that are divine. His own only begotten Son. There is no more holy and divine act that can be performed on earth than the sacrifice of the Mass. It is said that in the Mass, God is given to us. Jesus is given to us with all his merits during the Mass. It is why we receive God. He is given to us. We own him. We have him for us, human being. And now we can offer him back to his Father, offering something of infinite value. The value of our own actions will always come from our own dispositions, our own dignity. But we can see the problem. We are sinners, we are ashamed, and now what is the value of our actions? Maybe it's very low. We are not the Blessed Virgin Mary to please God. We are poor sinners, and now if we were to rely on our own actions, or on the quality of our own prayers, maybe we should fear. Because we say, Father, it's very difficult for me to pray, I am so much distracted, it's difficult for me. Yes, this is why we should come to Mass, because during the Mass, it is not your prayer, it is the prayer of Jesus for you. That is much better. The efficacy of the Holy Sacrifice does not depend on the worthiness or unworthiness of the priest. We say that for another sacrament, very traditionally, very long time ago, in the first century of the Church, we had this say, Peter baptized, Christ baptized, Judas baptized, Christ baptized. The same baptism made by Peter, who was faithful, and Judas, who was unfaithful, but it is the same value. Because in both cases, it is not the baptism of Saint Peter, it's not the baptism of Judas, it is the baptism of Christ. And when a good priest, very saint, says the Mass, or a priest who is a poor priest, morally speaking, maybe living a bad life, but still he says the Mass, it is not his Mass. It is the Mass of Christ. It is the sacrifice of Christ. And it has the same value because it is not the Mass of this priest, it is the Mass of Jesus. It is the sacrifice of Jesus. Of course, we will see that, of course, there is still a difference, but the difference is not essential, it's accidental. Of course, it's better to attend the Mass of Padre Pio than to attend my Mass, because we have more graces, because he is such a saint. But this is accidental, it's not a big difference, because essentially it is still Christ giving his life for you, and that is 99%. Okay? The virtue of the Mass is of itself. Imagine that you are given, a golden, how do you call that? A maggot of gold. The value is the gold itself. It doesn't matter who is bringing you this gold. It can be a good man, it can be a bad man. It doesn't matter. The value is the gold itself. The same for the Mass. The value is the Mass itself, not the priest who is saying the Mass. We do not lose the merits of Mass if it is offered for us by a priest who is not worthy, since Mass has its intrinsic value. In a similar way, a diamond is a diamond, even if the jeweler selling it be a bad man. However, as a good work, the graces and favors are limited partly by the will of God, and partly by the dispositions of those to whom the fruits are applied. Therefore, the more devotion we have at Mass, the greater will be the profit we derive. Of course, God is giving, and the gift of God by itself is unlimited. But after, God can decide to give you this grace or this grace at this moment during this Mass. There is the will of God giving what He wants when He wants. But there is also maybe your desire. Imagine you are invited to receive some very precious liquid, and you are told, come and take. And you come with a big jar, a tank, a full tank, or you come with a small glass. You can take whatever you want, but you limit yourself. If you have come with a glass, you will go with a glass. But if it is important to come with great desires and good dispositions to get more benefits. The more devotion we have at Mass, the greater will be the profits we derive. Now, I want to speak about the Mass offering. When you want the priest to offer the sacrifice, especially for your own intention, maybe your family, a thanksgiving for a soul of purgatory, you have a specific intention, and you would like the Mass to be applied specifically for this intention. The value of the Mass to be oriented to this soul, to this intention. And now, at this occasion, we ask the faithful to give some donation. It is a way to support the church, to support the priest, to give an offering to the priest who is celebrating the Mass. Of course, you are not buying the value of the Mass with this little money. It is not the value of the Mass, it is just an offering that is given when you ask a priest to celebrate the Mass for your own intention. It is a way to support the Church. Many Catholics have the laudable custom of leaving a certain amount of property or money in their wills in order to have masses offered for them after their death. Yeah, that was the old Christian custom. And even some big families, some royal families, they were establishing a church, establishing a convent, building the convent, and now they were asking, you will celebrate one Mass every year up to the end of the world for my soul. That was called a foundation. They were establishing a church, a convent, and now they were in exchange asking a Mass to be offered every year for the repose of their souls. There is also a certain devotion that is called the Gregorian Masses. It has come from the life of Saint Gregory the Great, who received the inspiration to offer 30 consecutive days the sacrifice of the Mass for a departed one, to free him from purgatory. And from this time we have this devotion in the Church to offer these 30 consecutive Masses for a dead person. It is not always easy to get a priest to celebrate these Masses because we have many obligations. For myself, I have to say Mass every Sunday for the faithful. It means I cannot say 30 Masses consecutively because I have the obligation to say Mass every Sunday for the faithful. And some priests have other obligations. It's not always easy. It was easier when we had many priests living in a convent, many Benedictine monks or Franciscan or Carmelite monks. They could easily say this Mass, but still, sometimes we can try to get them and have this devotion of 30 Masses said for the dead. We are saying that the faithful had the custom to give something to the priest or the church for celebration of the Mass. It can be to bring actually some host, some wine, or some candles for a celebration of the Mass. Because actually it is used for the Mass. And we have this question, what materials are used for consecration at Mass? It is bread and wine. And a drop of water is mixed with the wine in the chalice. Now, the bread for consecration is made from pure wheat flour mixed with water and baked. It has to be wheat to be valid. You know, in some rites after Vatican II, they wanted to do some inculturation, and they were starting to say Mass with maybe corn flour or rice. This is invalid. It is invalid. It has to be wheat. Why? Because it's what Jesus was using himself, and we are just using the same flour that Jesus was using, that was wheat. Wheat is a cereal that is universally used to make bread because it is the most efficient one for that. I would like to say something about gluten. You know, it has become a trend in these last years to say that gluten is bad for health. And in some very, very special situations, it is true that some people are totally intolerant to gluten. They can die. And even a very, very small particle of host with gluten, they cannot handle. It's very dangerous for them. It is true that some persons are totally intolerant to gluten, and for that they cannot even receive a host. Now some people have tried to make some host without gluten. Is it valid? Actually, it's not valid. Probably it's not valid. Because gluten is an essential element for the process of making bread. And we call that, there is a term, panification, is the fact to become bread. And that is due to the gluten. If you remove the gluten, the process cannot happen. It means it's not bread now. The Vatican has authorized maybe to reduce the quantity of gluten, but we should still have enough gluten for the process to happen of becoming bread. But someone who is intolerant to gluten cannot even accept that, because he can accept no gluten at all. It's just something to tell you that if someone had such a serious intolerance, he cannot even receive the host. This is why, in this case, there is a way to give communion with the precious blood, because this person is totally intolerant to gluten. But I know some dioceses in the world are selling a flour without gluten for host, and host without gluten. And now there is a doubt about validity, if they have really removed all the gluten and replaced by other chemical. There is a doubt on validity. The wine for consecration must be the pure juice of grapes fermented. No other wine is valid. Maybe you know that recently in US, we had a problem in a diocese. They were using a wine, and it was not a wine of grape. And the Vatican had to intervene, and they had to say again all the masses, because the masses were invalid. It has to be wine of grape. We mix a small drop of water, because this was also done by Christ. It was a ritual for the Jew to mix a bit of water with the wine. The water and wine also commemorate the water and blood that flowed from the wound on the side of our Lord. When is Mass offered? Mass is offered every day of the year except one day. On Good Friday, we don't celebrate Mass, because Good Friday is the day of the sacrifice of Christ himself, and we just commemorate the death of Jesus, and we don't celebrate Mass on this day. It's somehow, we have on this day the sacrifice of Christ himself, and those other days we offer Mass to renew this sacrifice. In the first centuries, bishops and priests celebrated Mass together, that we call Concelebration, and they have reintroduced that in the Church today. But Concelebration disappeared for some reasons, and one of the reasons is a concelebration is limiting the number of masses. If you have 10 priests who concelebrate, it's only one mass. But when every priest offers his own mass, you have 10 masses offered. And every mass has an infinite value. And this is why concelebration should be exceptional. Actually, in the traditional rite, we have concelebration only for the ordination of the priest. When we have been ordained, traditionally, it has been like that. The young priest concelebrates with the bishop. But this is the only concelebration we have. Also, for the consecration of a bishop, there is also a concelebration. Concelebration is not wrong in itself. It has been done, but it has this inconvenience to reduce the number of masses. And this is wrong mainly when today we lack of priests, and every priest should say mass for the faithful, and also multiply the masses to fight evil in the world. A priest is permitted to say mass only once a day, normally, apart on Christmas and All Souls Day, the 2nd of November, where the priest can see 3 masses, according to the liturgy. On Sundays and holidays of obligation, a priest, with the proper permission, may say 2 or even 3 masses for the sake of the people. The number 2 is a disposition that has changed with Pope Pius XII, when he was saying that Mass has to be celebrated in the morning, and with the approval of the bishop, also in the afternoon. But now it has been granted that we can celebrate Mass in the afternoon. At the early days of Christianity, Mass was said in the evening, after the example of the Last Supper. That's why we have the vigils. The vigils are starting at night, and they were praying all the night. St. Paul was doing that because during the day he was working, preaching, teaching, and the Christian community was meeting at night, and they were celebrating the Mass. Later, it was thought better to have it said in the morning for a greater respect to the Holy Eucharist, that we can keep fast before to receive. In our days, Mass is said at practically all hours of the day in order to facilitate attendance and the receiving of Holy Communion. And this is just something I want to precise. We can receive only once a day. Okay, if you attend 2 masses a day, you can receive only once. There is a tolerance for Christmas and Easter. When you attend the midnight Mass, you can receive. And if you attend another Mass during the day, you can also receive. It is a custom. But the other days of the year don't receive twice. You just receive once a day. it has also a meaning, and I think it's also a wisdom of the Church, a meaning because there is only one sacrifice, and it's also a way to express the unity of the sacrifice, to receive only once a day. It's also to avoid some abuse of people trying to receive in all the churches of Nairobi the same day. It's not proper. We don't receive twice a day.